We have no Tim Hardaway here today, but we still have a killer crossover episode. Sully from the Locked On MLB flagship is here to chat with Justin and myself about all things Guardians. We are going to get into this team and have just a fun round robin discussion about your Cleveland Guardians on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. Let me know how dated that reference is. Is Tim Hardaway still the go-to for a killer crossover? Put that in the comments below. I have no idea. So let me know. I am Jeff Ellis. I was a big basketball fan in the 90s, and it's kind of been on a slow fade ever since then. I do remember watching Inside the NBA on Saturday mornings in the 90s, though. If you remember that show, comment below. We have Sully with us. I think Sully, myself, and Stacy might be the only people left from like the first run of podcasts on this network. I think we are the only. It's like a zombie apocalypse, and we are the three that have made it through from those early days.
Well, Stacy has been here longer than me. Stacy was the one. I knew Stacy got Sulius beforehand on my old show, and she was the one who dragged me into this just before the 2019 season because they had a different person hosting my show. I'm Sully, the host of Locked On MLB, in case of every good friend was wondering who the heck I am. So, We've been here a while. We've been here for 4 seasons at least, right?
Yeah, I was dragged in by 4 Detroit Tigers hosts ago. That's who they were. Yeah. They were people I wrote with at Scout who brought me in. So I was part of the first grouping. So I guess maybe it's just Stacy and myself left. I don't know who else is here from that in like where we opened with that initial group. But yeah, it's still, you've been here. You might have done more episodes just because the rate of episodes you tend to get out.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes record an episode while I'm recording an episode. So it works out well that way. But good to have both of you on there. And you've got your cat on your lap. You look like a James Bond villain right now. You got Blofeld. Locked on Spectre going on here.
That's the bingo
one of our
card.
Bingos. It's one of our bingos. Is like a cat, me interrupting Justin, a cough. Those are the things you can count on the show. Yeah, dated NBA reference. This is that's how it goes. I figure just having a cat in your video has to help the YouTube metrics. I think that's what I think. That's the biggest part of us monetizing this month. It's just random cats and babies.
Right. Hey, we're running this show on the Locked On MLB feed. So why don't you two guys introduce yourself to the Locked On MLB folks? Because Jeff and JL here. You take your time.
I guess. So I'm Jeff Ellis. If you want to follow me, it's at Jeff MLB Draft. Like I said, one of the originals here. Used to write at Scout. Used to write 24/7. I just started writing again for fun. So we'll see. I'm putting out my. Let's see. I'm at about 14 picks into a mock draft for this year's MLB draft.
Oh, cool.
Let's see. My total word count is already 2,500 words. I am long-winded. So it's going to be about 7,000 when I get through like 35 picks. But so I'm getting back into some of the writing of it. But follow me if you want more draft content or Guardians content. Justin?
Yeah.
I'm Justin Latta. I think I'm still the newbie on the entire network. I don't think, as far as the baseball channels are concerned, I don't think anybody else has come into the baseball channel since I've come in October. But I don't recommend following me on Twitter personally, JL_baseball. I really don't recommend it. I actually tweet a lot less than I used to. Maybe it's just because it's the winter, but during the season, I might tweet 20 to 30 times a day about Guardians prospects and just the Guardians in general and whatever TV show I happen to be watching at the time. But I've written about Guardians prospects for, it's almost 2023. So going on 15 years now. It's been a long journey. Currently Guardians Baseball Insider, and I guess soon to be next year in Cleveland newsletter if you want to subscribe to that.
So, Justin, do me a favor. The Guardians are already one of They are the youngest team in baseball. It's one of the reasons why I think they're so exciting going into next year. And you saw the likes, the Lindor was a steep price to, a big talent to give up. But unlike some of the people, did I mention Mookie Betts of teams that traded away a star player? The Guardians got back good. I mean, they got a terrific up the middle of their infield out of that deal. I mean, like, they got value for that trade. And, they got, obviously, Stephen Kwan had a great rookie year. Obviously, they got, good production out of Oscar Gonzalez towards the end. Who are the next wave for the Locked On MLB fans? Who are the next wave of young Cleveland players who are going to be inserted into this already comically young team that is going to, I think going to put together a good run at another shot at the division title?
Yeah, I would say at some point, Ahmed Rosario's in his last year of his contract. We really have no idea what's going to happen with him at this point. I think he's going to get to the free agency next year. I don't see them extending him, despite what some people think or what he wants or what Jose Ramirez wants. They'll find somebody within their system to step up, whether it's Gabriel Arias or Brian Rocchio and maybe eventually Angel Martinez. We'll see. But I would say the next big wave of young players, I'm sure Jeff would agree, is the pitching. They have to figure out a exit strategy for Shane Bieber at some point. They have to find an exit strategy for Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali, who, are still young and arbitration eligible, but haven't really produced like they want them to or stayed healthy. And they have, Daniel Espino and Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen and Joey Cantillo, who's on the 40. They got to figure out, and Cody Morris, I should mention Cody Morris, even though Cody Morris is 26, which isn't all that young anymore, I suppose, but he's youthful in innings. But at some point, they've got to move them in a
exactly
rotation.
That way to
that's
interrupt.
Old and decrepit on this Cleveland roster. 26. Oh my God, that's like
the fact they could run a car. Yeah.
Have to take the keys away from him. I mean, like, why does there have to be an exit strategy for Shane Bieber? I mean, he's 20. He's going to be 28 years old, and he's had a couple of two of his last 3 seasons have been outstanding.
I think he wants to go back home. Like, I don't have a ton of inside information on this, but honestly, I think he wants to return to the West Coast. I think for as much as Cleveland, listen, we also know they're not going to be able to sign him money-wise, but I think even if Cleveland had the money to sign him, I think he's going back to the West Coast. I think he's a Dodger or Angel likely. I think, he returns there often. I think for any player, it's just nicer to be closer to home. And I think even if they had the money, and this isn't me being an apologist, it's just legitimately, I think, if they could have paid him a lot a few years ago, maybe. But now that he is so close to the end, why not wait and just get paid by the Dodgers anyways and go back home? So I think it's, like I said, it's not a inside information. It's just a few things here and there where I think that he is, I think he wants to go back to the West Coast.
I have, I could go on a rant here, and why not? Cleveland has the money. They have the money. There's no excuse. They have the money. There isn't one owner of any team who cannot sign a major player. And if we've seen anything, I mean, you have one of the most valuable commodities, which is a workhorse ace under the age of 30. I'm sure he'd love to go home. I'm currently in Southern California. It's a lovely place. I would live anywhere for the right amount of money. Cleveland obviously has the longest World Series drought of any of the franchises right now, and of any of the cities, as both the Cubs and Washington have cut away any argument. And they have a remarkable core of young players, an ace pitcher, a Hall of Fame manager, a winnable division, and a payroll which is only slightly higher than that of the hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Why the hell? I mean, I would love to see someone explain to me why they can't sign them. And you can't say small market. That's not an excuse. I have 3 words: San Diego Padres.
San Diego Padres also have about 3 times the average income. Like, that's the thing that people tend to forget. It's like, and this isn't to be an apologist for the Dolans. Dolans need to spend more, But one of the things, two things are, one, if he gets the open market, Cleveland can't contend with the other
Why
teams. And he's going to
not?
go the open because they don't have the revenue base of those teams. And it's if you look at teams in terms of like population, just things like population times average income, Cleveland is a bottom 3 organization. Like they can't, if the Yankees or the Dodgers are in a bidding war with them, they're gonna lose. Even if they had an owner with money, even if they're in that situation. And
Which they have.
San Diego, and
They
then
have
San
an owner
Diego
with money.
and San Diego comes up a lot, but there's two things that really you have to put on the table with San Diego. One is that is a top, I believe, 5 market in terms of average.
Well, San Diego's the only game in town too. I know Jeff just froze on us. They're the Padres are the only game in town. It's that the Chargers are gone. There's no NBA team. I mean, that's the only thing I would say for that. And Cleveland does have David Blitzer now, but we don't know how that's going to manifest itself. And David Blitzer seems to be more pursuant of land around the stadium. Like, but you know what Atlanta has? Atlanta has the ballpark village, all that stuff. So that's what David Blitzer seems to be most interested in. And it's going to take a few years for that to play out. So, but no, Jeff's right. Whenever Bieber hits the open market, it'll get out of the realm of where they will be willing to compete pitching. What's the largest they've ever paid a pitcher? Because what's the last pitcher they signed to a contract? Carrasco, Kluber, those were all before market deals.
I mean, the last free agent was Blackjack McDowell. Of note,
I feel like
believe.
I'm in bizarro world right now. I absolutely feel like I'm in bizarro world right now. Living in California for years and years and years, all I kept hearing about, it's unfair. San Diego has no chance. It's the tiniest market. Then all of a sudden they turn around and say, well, we're going to be big spenders. And okay, now we're like, well, I mean, obviously San Diego, when you think of big markets, when you think about big, like it hitting my ears is the exact same if someone said, well, it's not like the Red Sox can sign their stars anymore. It's like they have to watch what they spend. This is okay. Here's why don't I meet you halfway? What if the Guardians raise their payroll to mediocrity? What if they had a mediocre payroll? Because right now it's so stupidly low and so irresponsibly low that I think the commissioner should intervene and get new damn owners in there. It's bad for baseball. And this is a team that is like 2 solid players away from being a legitimate World Series contender, in my humble opinion, to break this great long curse. And they have been blessed with a 28-year-old Cy Young contender. And we're saying, well, these billionaire owners with the lowest payroll of any contender, they can't really sign him because they haven't built.
Well, he also has declining velocity, is coming off injury and had an up and down season. Like, there's a lot to it, just because I get into this with our fan base as well. Like, Shane Bieber has his peaks, but it's not, even if you look today at Zips with Dan Syzmborski, he wrote up he's not the guy he was 2 years ago. Like, there's also reasons specifically with pitching why you don't pay pitchers in particular. And again, even if this is in a vacuum, I think Cleveland is not the preferred choice. I don't think he's against it. And, just for the whole idea, if you're looking at just revenue, the estimated generated revenue, San Diego is 15th, Cleveland is 20th. If everything is an open market and everything is the same, let's say we make it the NFL, which it's not, there's no cap.
No,
New York still generates, or the Dodgers generate twice the income Cleveland does. And that has an effect. Like, I think it's a little Pollyanna to say anyone can bid on these guys when there are teams that just have more revenue. Like, that is going to give you an advantage.
I don't think that they're going to have a payroll as high as Los Angeles. I just stop being the Pirates.
They're not, though.
To win the World Series.
They've moved up they're nearly at 100 million this year.
Good.
So, I mean, they've made forward. The only reason I'm getting this way is because this is literally like, I'm already like looking forward to our comments. Like, there's a lot of people in our comments who like come after us.
I want Cleveland to win.
We hold the purse strings.
I was the only person not from Cleveland rooting against the Cubs in 2016. I desperately wanted Cleveland to win that World Series. You would have thought I grew up in Youngstown when Rajai Davis hit that home run. I was going so bananas. I just, I want.
Yeah.
I
And
just,
that's why, like I said, I lost internet there, but I'm sure Justin commented. It's like we're hoping minority ownership will help push this forward. We agree. Like, there's no way that this is a team that should probably, where they are at this point in contention, have like 120 million payroll. They're moving forward, but 130, 140, they should be closer to middle of the pack. Unfortunately, yeah, I mean, they do have an owner who is not interested in. I don't want to say he's interested in winning, but at a cost.
Right.
It is the same owner who made the statements, enjoy him, about Francisco Lindor. That was, I'm going to be mocking him about that till end of time because it was not very forward thinking, and who also talked about, good fans buy luxury boxes. So he's had some faux pas. There's some issues. And I think, and it's a toxic situation as well. So even though I've been both a defender and an attacker when it comes to Dolan, the best thing is just moving on and ending what is a toxic relationship between city and owner.
Well, one thing I can say, by the way that the team is constructed and by the way the other teams in the division are kind of in like teetering around, mediocrity or being worse, I think it's a borderline surefire bet that Cleveland's going to repeat as division champions. If you're going to make any bets, go to betonline.net. Give me that banner below. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, and news and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college football, basketball, but no longer the World Cup, unless you want to put your money retroactively on Argentina or really get your bet in early for 2026. If you love sports podcasts, and I'm guessing you do if you're listening to my voice right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. How was that for
I just want to make one final statement on the whole ownership thing. I will say the one thing that is in ownership's favor, being a Cleveland sports fan, is they get the heck out of the way. I think as a Cleveland sports fan, we have seen the dangers of new money coming in and just getting in the way of everyone. This front office is, maybe in all of sports, the pinnacle front office. Like, there's a reason why they have a team has hired their pitching coach from Cleveland the last 3 years, why the front office is always rated. And the one thing I will give Nolan credit to is he just gets the heck out of the way and lets them operate. And my one concern is that I don't think Blitzer's the type, and Blitzer owns like 5 teams. So I think he's the perfect owner in that way. Like, he's not going to get metal, but that is the one thing you say. After years of Haslam, I am at sometimes I just have to take a step back and be like, it could be worse.
Hey, I want to be positive here for a second, because they did make an addition that I thought was, I like the acquisition of Bell as the new first baseman. I don't know what your take on it was. I know he didn't play particularly well when he went to San Diego. He did hit a couple of home runs in the postseason, but
Zips didn't like him.
What?
I was going to say Zips did not like Josh Bell this year.
Well, I think what they needed, I think what this team needs is a bat here or a bat there. Like, I love that this is a speed team. I love that this is a take first to third on a single team. I love that brand of baseball. I know I'm supposed to say universal DH, please hit 5 home runs a game. Please don't steal bases because something, there's one, because it's hazardous. I like hazards. I like excitement. I like movement. I like pace of play. When a runner gets on base, I don't want to fall asleep. The most boring play in baseball is the walk. The second most boring play in baseball is the strikeout. I like to see a ball hit in play and things happen. And Cleveland's the type of team that does that. And you need a couple of hitters in that team who will, I know this is sacrilege to say, but will hit the ball in play, hit the ball somewhere. And I do think I'm not saying Josh Bell is Aaron Judge, but I think that acquiring players like that would go a long way to give them an extra bat or two along the way. I was hoping they would have acquired JD Martinez. I thought that would have been a fit where it would have been almost like having another hit, just having a professional hitter in the middle of that lineup, I think would go a long way. But they didn't. They signed Bell. And from where I'm sitting, that's like, a good, low risk, potential high ceiling pickup.
Yeah, he's a solid performer. I think what we learned with the Zips thing, and we'll talk with Dan about this tomorrow, is when you look at a Josh Bell and a Stephen Kwan, why did Zips not like him? They don't hit the ball hard enough. Like that's the thing. He is an lower average exit velocity, and I think that's part of the reason he didn't grade out as high in that system. But he's an upgrade, like no doubt. Like he's going to replace what potentially is Owen Miller, which, he was on fire for the first month and a half. Then after that, he was a 60 runs created plus. He was not good. So, he's a switch hitter. He immediately won points when people found out. I think he was married to a girl from the Youngstown area. Speaking of Youngstown earlier, he's already got some Ohio ties. And, he's a really smart dude. He's one of those players that will fit in with some of those more cerebral types in the clubhouse. And San Diego is not a hitter-friendly park. He definitely seemed to die when he went there, at least in terms of how he was hitting and producing. So you're hoping to buy low. If you're going to lose out on Jose Abreu, I think he's a heck of a plan B. At least that's my view. Justin, you haven't had a chance to chime in.
Well, they were after Jose Abreu. All the reports suggest they made an aggressive offer to Abreu, and Bell was their plan B. So they went into the offseason with the intent to improve the lineup, and they have, I would say. Bell over having to play Owen Miller at first base or DH is an upgrade, even if you think it's just like a D to a C, even if at the worst. And then taking Austin Hedges to Mike Zunino. I know people are skeptical about Zunino and the injury, and Zunino's the one guy in the lineup who's not going to make a lot of contact, but everybody else will now, and Hedges didn't last year. But when Mike Zunino does make contact, the ball goes a long way, which for Austin Hedges, it often didn't. So they upgraded there. And there's still room for a bat. There's still room for them to add a hitter. I don't know where that's going to come from. At some point, they have to make a trade with all these prospects they have because they can't keep sitting on them.
Right.
So there's still room to add a hitter. Depends on how they want to play it. And they don't have to necessarily add a hitter to like a certain spot in the lineup. They can just add it wherever. The thing we talked about before is there's a lack of trade partners out there, and Cleveland is also difficult to trade with. That's part of their issue as well, as they are, infamous for setting value on their players. And this is what we want to get for this player. And if we don't get it, we will not make the trade. We will not meet you in the middle. You will meet us at our value. And that's that. So that also makes it difficult, but yeah, there's room for a hitter for sure.
Let's start a rumor.
I'm so bad at these things.
But let's start a rumor, because the best hitter who will probably be traded, and of course, excuse me, this team that is going to break camp is not necessarily the team that's going to be on the field in July. There are tremendous prospects they have, and as you said, there are more prospects than there are slots on the team, which makes them a very good team to pull a trade with. Now, I'm going to say this. One of the wealthiest organizations in baseball has suddenly decided they're dirt poor and cannot sign their players anymore. And a beloved homegrown figure is probably going to be on the trade block in Rafael Devers. Could they swing for a rental? It probably won't cost them all their best prospects for a rental Rafael Devers if it's clear that the Red Sox are not going to sign him to a long-term deal. And you can put him anywhere, because he's not necessarily the greatest third baseman in the world. I know you already got Ramirez.
Yeah, is Devers a free agent at the end of the year? Is that the deal?
Yes.
Yeah, Cleveland doesn't necessarily go deep
They've
on
never.
rentals.
Yeah, they don't go rentals, but
it's been Jay Bruce. It's been Josh Donaldson, if you even want to call that. That was more of a let's hope this works out sort of thing with Josh Donaldson. So Jay Bruce was really the last time they played in the rental market, and they definitely could. I don't know where I don't know would you DH him or would you?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
You put him at first. Yeah.
The question is, would they meet a cost? I think at the end of the day, if you're talking about 6 months, if you're a Red Sox fan, there's not a huge return. But I would also argue the biggest mistake the Red Sox made this past year was, you want to talk about mismanagement. Not trading JD Martinez at the deadline, not trading, Evolve, because not only did they didn't get any prospects, but they kept themselves in the highest tax range. So then instead of getting comp B picks, which happened after the second round, they got picks that happened after, instead of getting the equivalent of an early third, they got an early fifth. Like, they cost themselves multiple positions, lots of money in the draft, higher draft picks, and they got nothing for their guys. Like, it is a weirdly mismanaged situation. I honestly, I'm sure a Red Sox fan would be like, you're not getting him then, but I wouldn't trade any of Cleveland's like top 7, top 8 guys. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's put it, maybe Brian Rocchio is about as high as I would discuss, but I don't even know, especially for a rental, the prices have been pretty mediocre through the years. Manny Machado is probably the last guy I can think of in that situation who was similar. And he went for like the 10th best prospect in the Dodger system and 2 guys in the teens.
That trade turned into a disaster for Baltimore.
Yeah, they got nothing to show for it. So I think, could Cleveland chase? Absolutely. Boston's just backed themselves into such a terrible corner. Yeah. Like, and it's, it's hard to feel too bad because they've been so successful of late, but like, it's hard to not look at like some of the things they've done in the draft and some of the things they've done with their players, and just I don't understand.
Neither do I. And I'm coming from a native New Englander who grew up one of the biggest Red Sox fans you'll ever meet in your life. I'm looking at this front office going, I have no clue what you're doing. I have I've seen whack-a-mole games with a clearer strategy than what they're doing. But I figured their front office is in such a disarray. I just thought maybe there was a way Cleveland could take advantage of it, but
I wonder if it's something along the lines of like Gabriel Arias, his name I always butcher, who is, I thought at the time was arguably the centerpiece of the Clevenger deal. You talked about how well they did with the Lindor trade. They did maybe even better with that Clevenger deal. It's like maybe you're looking at someone like, Arias, who could be a shortstop of the future type. And then maybe some farther down the line maybe a Logan Allen, the left-handed pitcher. It still feels a little bit rich, but you are talking about one of the elite hitters. It would be an abrupt change for them, but it'd be, if you did want to get fans excited, that's how you do it.
I just think they need a couple of really just strong bats in that line. I love their pitching staff. I really do. And even if they're not going to get Cy Young candidate Bieber, I think that you saw that they just up and down just have good arms, and and they have a lot of jackrabbits on their team. It almost feels like I'm aging myself a little bit because I'm a fan of, I remember 1980s baseball very, very well. The Cardinals were one of the elite teams of that decade, when the only team to win 3 pennants in the 80s. And they almost won 2 World Series along the way. Actually, they almost won 3 because they had a lead in Game 7 of the World Series in '87. And they were a team that was loaded with smart hitters who could run first to third and steal bases. And there was always one big thumper in the middle of their lineup, whether it was Hernandez or Clark or whomever it was who would get the big hit. And I just look at this Cleveland team, and they have the thumper to a degree in Ramirez. I just think he needs a little bit of backup. And this division, I know the division play is, first of all, I'm an advocate of blowing up division play altogether. I don't, it no longer serves a purpose. But if they're continuing to play divisions, then Cleveland's, the biggest problem for Cleveland is going to be either young kids having regression, or the White Sox finally happy that they're not under Tony La Russa anymore and letting loose and playing at the capability that they can. But they lost Abreu, and I'm sorry, they acquired Benintendi. No, that's not going to make up for what Jose Abreu meant to that team. So this really is Cleveland's division to win. And man, they just give them a thumper and they're going to get it.
No, it's like I said, Justin talked about it on our show and here. There's just you're kind of hoping like Arizona falls apart, but at this point you don't even have a place for Christian Walker. So it's almost like this is my dream scenario is Taylor Blake Ward from Los Angeles if he replicates what he does and that team falls apart. But it's a weird time in terms of finding a match. I was thinking as we look at time here, it's time for some dramatic things, and then we can maybe come back around. I feel like it's a dramatic time in the podcast, right?
Well, then let me pull a little drama right here. Let me just ask a couple of dramatic, serious questions here. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in the states where marijuana is completely legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, your parents can tell, everyone can tell. So what makes you think law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? So look at driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high or you get a DUI. This is paid for by NHTSA.
Speaking of Tony La Russa. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
Right.
So it's my last. It's my last Locked On Guardians episode. It's been nice knowing all of you.
Justin,
thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
So now it's just Stacy and me from the old guard left.
Listen, that is a general
Tony Montana blaze of glory.
That is a general problem in baseball. I would like to see them address. It is. I mean, we know the Josh Hancock story. We know the multiple stories of this, and unfortunately, it is a baseball problem. So when I hear this ad read, I just feel like, we need to take it. I just want to say to people, like, be serious about this stuff. Like, this is a consistent problem in baseball. We have not had it pop up in a while, but we joke about the Tony La Russa of it all. Like, it's happened multiple times, and it has cost multiple baseball players their lives. So let's be smarter and better.
You want to hear a positive story about that? Actually, I will say from Cleveland's perspective, I heard last year, in the past in Columbus, the clubhouse they'd be asking to stock the fridge with beer in Columbus more often. In this past year, it was pretty much non-existent. It was mostly energy drinks and water, or not energy drinks, like just what do they call that, Body Armor or something, not to promote a sponsor we don't have, but it was more water. And
but if they want to sponsor us, we would gladly support their product.
It was a great segue. Yeah, they very little beer stocking of the fridge in Columbus this year. A lot of water and other recovery drinks, we'll say. So if you want a good note on that,
I'll take it a step further. And I mentioned this on the old Sully baseball podcast. This won't get much traction now, but I think there's something to it. I'm 100% for no beer sales at a ball game. 100% for that. For this reason, before anyone says, "Oh, you can never do that," I was picking up old programs from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and how many of them had cigarette ads in them. How many teams had big cigarette ads built all over the stadium? And cigarette sales and everything like that were critical. People were smoking the ballparks. There was lots of advertising, and now that's not even. You don't even think about that. There's so many other corporate sponsorships and everything that you can have based on things other than beer sales. And guess what? When you go to a ball game, who's always the person that makes going to a ball game unpleasant? You want families there. You want families there of 6 or 7 people, each buying a ticket. There's no children's ticket. Each buying ticket. There's no children's hot dog. There's no children's nacho cup. Like the helmet, and buying the freaking souvenirs. It's always drunk people who ruin the experience. It's always people, whenever there's anything bad happen, they were really intoxicated. Oh, they were really drunk. They're really this. They're really that. We don't have drunk people going to an Avengers movie. We don't have drunk people staggering around Disneyland. I know there are stadiums that are named Coors Field, Busch Stadium, Miller Park, all that stuff. Guess what? If we can change the name of, it's no longer Miller Park. We can change the name of anything if we want. So every time I've had I've been to at least 28 ballparks. I know it's a weird specific number to say. I've been to at least 28 ballparks. Every time I've had an unpleasant experience, it's been because someone's been plowed. So if you don't have people, especially down the street at Dodger Stadium here, how many times people didn't like to bring their families there? I don't like to bring my families there. Too many drunks, too many fights, too many this. So I know I'm preaching to deaf ears right now. I don't know if we're allowed to say that anymore, but I am for cutting it off. There you go.
I don't disagree with you. That's why I stopped going to Browns games, to be honest with you, because they're way worse than anybody. Opening day is the only time that's a problem in Cleveland for the Guardians. But that definitely won't fly in Cleveland because the people who paid for that stadium were beer drinkers and cigarette smokers. The syntax is what paid for Jacobs, now Progressive Field. But I am not against you. I mean, like I said, that's why I stopped going to Browns games because too many inebriated people and doing things that were just unnecessarily stupid. So I don't.
I was at the Bottlegate game against the Jaguars. I got to see that firsthand back in the day. No, I
had to cough there. I had to turn my camera off for a second.
Oh, it's a hot button issue. But yeah, no, it's like whenever you kind of have a cringe moment at a game, it's definitely tied to someone drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well, anyway, so let's
back to the Guardians.
Let's talk about great Cleveland memories. How about 10-cent beer night?
My dad was there.
Oh, really?
Yes, my father was present at 10-cent beer night. He laughed after the third inning because, and I quote, "It was a real bleep show." I can't say what he goes. We were there. I could tell it was getting bad. We laughed after the third. Like he did not stay for the full gamut, but he went up, experienced that, and was like, "Time to go home."
Yeah,
he's got the ticket too. For everyone being like, everyone says they went. No, my dad had the ticket, so I have physical proof.
If you have an issue with me saying there shouldn't be beer sales at a ball game, send me your thoughts at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. Throw them right at me. Throw them right in my face. Tell me why I'm wrong. It has nothing to do with freedom or anything like that. You can't bring a keg to the movie theaters. You can't walk around Disneyland with a fifth of scotch. Okay, there's nothing to do with freedom. All right, they're not prohibition. Just no beer sales. There you go.
You could buy beer at movie theaters now.
Before what?
You could buy beer at movie theaters now. It's surprising. I haven't seen a movie in a while, but you can buy alcohol there now. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I did. Well, they weren't selling them at Wakanda Forever last weekend for me. So,
maybe it's an Ohio thing. I don't know.
Oh, there you go. Maybe I'm preaching to the wrong crowd by saying it in Ohio. I forgot the last time. I've loved my times when I visited Ohio. I went to the Mistake by the Lake. I went to Old Cleveland Stadium.
Old Municipal.
Yep, and I've been to I saw League Park before they refurbished it. I went to Jacobs Field. It was called Jacobs Field when I was there, and they were called the Indians. And I went to Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. I've not been to Great America, which looks gorgeous. Looks absolutely gorgeous. And and I've liked Cleveland and I liked Cincinnati. I like both of those cities. I'd love to see I would love to see an all Ohio World Series one of these days. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
What was the year it got closest? Was that like
95?
Was it in the 90s that Cincinnati?
95. The Reds were in the NLCS against Atlanta, and they lost the first two games in extra innings. Like they could have taken home field, won one of those two games, and made it a real interesting series. And of course, Cleveland went on to win the pennant that year. But that was as close as it got. And that's when the Reds were wearing their white hats. They looked like the Good Humor Men. It said, great. There's some great players on that team, but I hated those uniforms with the white hat with the red pinstripes on them. I thought they looked ridiculous.
Whereas that was my hat when I was 11, 12, and 13.
There you
because
go.
I won it, and I didn't have any other baseball hats. So I actually wore that ridiculous hat for a few years because it was free.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Some final thoughts on this. I just want to say I want to see Cleveland win for two reasons. I'm tired. I'd like generational championships to happen, and this is kind of the last big lingering one, because then after that it's the expansion teams, like, who haven't won yet. Those will be the ones that will be, have the longest droughts. But also, I'm such a huge Terry Francona fan that having him manage. He was one Tyler Naquin's. What was it? No, not Taylor Naquin. What's the name of the guy? Kipnis, Jason Kipnis
Mm.
swing from winning the World Series when he hit that drive that went foul. For a second there, I thought it was gonna, like that, it was gonna happen. But if he could win World Series in both Boston and in Cleveland, I mean, he's going to the Hall of Fame anyway. But I think that I just would love to see him, have his third title, and right off in the sunset. Um, but I just think it would be great to see this team finally win, and and sort of to get a lot of the, take a lot of the suffering and just put it on the shelf, which is why I can't believe when I know I'm going to, you have an ownership saying you could do this. It's there. It's sitting right there. Spend just a little bit of dough to get your bats going, and sorry.
No, I mean I agree. It would have been nice to see like one more bat upgrade. It's just it's I'm gonna put it this way, without someone, people are already gonna get mad at me. It's a double-edged sword, right? Like things are actually moving well, prospects are playing well. I think there's some, if you went deep on Zips today, I don't know how many people went deep on Zips, but George Valera's number 2 comp was Aaron Judge. So like I know I'm gonna ask him about that tomorrow. But I think there is part of it is sometimes I'm sure the front office would spend probably on extensions if they had it. Like me, I would love the payroll to be higher because that meant we re-signed Tristan McKenzie and Andres Jimenez to contracts right now, much like Atlanta does. But I think sometimes the front office, like they legitimately like some of these guys and don't want to block some spots. So for as much as another bat would be great, I think the front office is actually feeling like they're in a good spot. And the guys like Valera, Rocchio, Naylor are, we're a bridge to a gap. And I know even talking Justin and I through the years, Will Brennan is someone that maybe doesn't get the national run he deserves, but is very well thought of in system, even if Zips is not a fan of his. But I think sometimes it's not always the money. Now, again, I would love them to spend money on the extensions that I talked about. Like and it's not to say they won't. Like Straw and Clase happened before last year. Like they kind of more do those later in the spring, but that's what I'd love to see happen. And then, if something opens up at the deadline, and if someone underperforms, like if Oscar Gonzalez regresses, if no one steps up, I think it's perfect time. But I am weirdly okay with where they are right now.
Okay. All right.
Justin, I feel like I've cut you off like 17 times today.
No, I think we're only at like 4.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, the people will comment and let us know if you did. No, I would like to see them maybe get another insurance bat for sure. I don't know who that's going to be. And I know I keep saying I'd like to add another bullpen arm too. And I know they don't really have the space for it in terms of roster spots, but bullpens always scare me year to year. So adding an experienced bullpen arm, but and even so, signing a free agent reliever is never a good idea. I don't like spending free agent dollars on relievers because they are incredibly unreliable. And if you're asking a team to spend money, you should want them to at least spend it on something that's got a little less volatility, and that is not relievers. Right. Not unless you absolutely have no choice.
Yeah. I always think you're almost better off signing a starting pitcher who may be starting to fade, and hope that you roll the bones that they'll play well as a reliever. So,
well, look, show back in the bullpen.
There you go. All right. Well, look, we've been yapping around for a while here. But hey, thanks for having me on Locked On Guardians, and I'm going to be playing the show on the Locked On MLB feed as well. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at Sully Baseball Podcast and subscribe on YouTube. And you can see on my Sully Baseball YouTube page the in memoriam videos that I make at the beginning of each year. And we're going to have sadly, we're going to have a few more this year with the likes of Gaylord Perry, Bruce Sutter, Vin Scully, and we just got word of Tom Browning, who was a big part of the 1990 World Series title for Cincinnati, who also threw the perfect game against the eventual world champion Dodgers in '88. So check that out, and thank you guys for having me part of your show.
No, for sure.
Thanks for coming on.
No, it's great to talk. That made me want to go dig up Doug Jones. No, not dig up. Poor choice of words. I was trying to remember when Doug Jones.
God.
Twice today.
This got dark, man.
Because he's one of the underappreciated. That was 2021, not this year.
He was in last year's in
years. Then he was underappreciated. One of the great relievers in Cleveland history.
5-time All-Star.
Yeah, great.
By the way,
reliever.
So. Thanks so much for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today. Make your second listen be Locked On MLB. Your third listen should be Locked On Sports Today. Get the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's Take of the Day. Locked On Sports Today is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
And then, again, big thank you to Sully for jumping in, giving a new perspective. I know there's going to be people in the comments saying, hallelujah to what you're preaching. So you're going to immediately grab some fans. So go check out Locked On MLB if you enjoyed that. And the way we end all of our shows is go Guardians, go.